Welcome to Transmissions Alt Mode, where we talk about all news, comics, and media related to the Transformers. On this episode, we are thrilled to welcome the epic voice guy himself, Mr. Jon Bailey, to join us on the podcast. Today is Friday, October 18th, 2024, and this is episode 412 of Transmissions Alt Mode.
Welcome to Transmissions Alt Mode, the podcast that finally found its transformation cog. I'm your host, Charles, aka Big C, and I'm joined by the excellent Transmissions team. The amazing and awesome producer and editor, Mike.
Whoa, I get first billing here? Damn.
And Jeremy, aka Yakko.
Hey, how's it going? Let's talk Transmission. I screwed up his line. Let's talk Transformers. I can't be trusted with that responsibility.
Today, we are excited to have a special guest on the show. Jon Bailey, aka Epic Voice Guy, is not only a very talented voice actor and voiceover artist, he's also a huge Transformers fan. He's gotten to live the dream to voice Transformers characters on the silver screen in both the Bumblebee movie and Transformers 1. But as just one small part of his long list of credits on TV, movies, and video games. Mr. Bailey, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
It's great to have you here. And yeah, we want to pick your brain just to talk a little bit about your career and everything you've done. And of course, Transformers.
Bro, my brain's the size of a walnut, but knock yourself out.
Well, let's start. I mean, we like to go all the way back to the beginning for our guests and just tell us a little bit about.
I began. Oh, we're not going that far back. Okay.
What was? How did you first get into Transformers? So yeah, of course, I assume you were a little kid like us who got hit with it in 1984.
Yeah, 1984. I was 5 years old, and my mom took me down to the toy aisle. That's right. We had a toy aisle, and the girl stuff was on one side, and the boy stuff was on the other side. And she put me right dead center between G.I. Joe on the right and Transformers on the left. She's like, "Okay, you can pick one thing, and that's just going to be it. From now on, we're not doing anything else. We're not swapping back and forth. It's just going to be that one thing and nothing else." So I said, "All right," and I looked very carefully at them, and I saw that Transformers was like a puzzle, a vehicle, and a robot with incredibly good packaging. And G.I. Joe had a lot of accessories and like small parts. And, you know, the only real fun was to be had in getting the big vehicles, which were kind of expensive. And I kind of figured my parents would be like, "Nah, it might be too much to spend." So I was like, yeah, because I noticed that the majority of Transformers were very low price. I was very logical, like thinking this all out. So I was like, I think it's going to be Transformers. And she bought me Bumblebee for my first one. And then my grandfather bought me my second one. It was Mixmaster. And the third one, myself, Skywarp, I saved up my own money for. And I didn't get Starscream. I went with the one with the purple in it. So,
yeah. Nice. So what would you consider is your favorite part of the Transformers franchise? Is it toys, comic books?
Me. Just me. I don't care about it. I don't really. I love things when everything comes together to make a freaking fantastic. And obviously, it had a few. I mean, all these guys going back and saying like, "Oh, the 1986 movie was the best movie ever, and nothing can ever be." Go back and watch it again. I mean, come on. They were selling an album of songs, and they were putting montages. They were drowning out the movie with the music and the sound effects. I could barely understand Eric Idle. I don't know about you, but I had to wait till subtitles to figure out half of what he said. There was so many issues in the old cartoon. There were animation mistakes and 2-star screams, and Soundwave was an Autobot, and it's like, it's not perfect. Come on, it's never been perfect, but it wasn't perfect. It was just a great bunch of ideas all together in one that worked very well. You know what I mean? It was a catchy theme song. It was magnificent artwork, really colorful characters, and enough of them that every kid could identify with one. There was always one character in there. They were like, that's who I want to. I would either and you either wanted Optimus Prime to be your dad or your big brother, or you wanted Bumblebee to be your best friend, or you identify with one of the ones that were kind of like more obscure. You know what I mean? Like I've seen people that are like, man, I'm a big fan of like such and such, a shark screwdriver, and like, where is that one from? Like, oh, really, you never really know. It's such a great brand and it's so large, and then you put an incredible talent of cast of talent together, because you're talking about some legendary people like Don Messick. The original voice of Scooby Doo did a lot of these characters, and something that even now we've only recently lost. Jack Angel hasn't been gone that long, and I have a few of those folks left. So if you see them at conventions, try to get over there to see them before it's too late to see them again, because you got Michael Bell, Neil Ross, and Oppenheimer. I always get his name wrong. Alan Oppenheimer. So those guys are pushing their late 80s. So go see it. They're not just famous for Transformers. They're also famous for He-Man and a bunch of other stuff. So those guys work really, really well together. And they really and they had a great product. They had an amazing toy. And it was one of those situations where you have everything all kind of working together. You have a cartoon and you have a toy and you have a great song, great music. You have great acting, great characters, great voices, and you have a really cool story. And it just all kind of really worked together, because there were a lot of other cartoons that might have even been better animated or whatever, but they just didn't hit. You know what I mean? It was just kind of that's great and all, but you don't see Michael Bay's Dino Riders. You know what I mean?
How long has it taken for a Voltron live action movie to get off the ground? I mean, we're just now seeing some casting announcements.
But I remember before Transformers were right around this in 2007, 2006. They were like Voltron live action.
Yeah.
To 2024, and they're still talking about making it.
Yeah. Here, now we've had how many live action Transformer movies, and then Transformers 1.
Yeah. And you know what? I remember getting picked on for liking Transformers better than other cartoons. They're like, oh, He-Man's the best. G.I. Joe, and look where they are.
Yep. And I mean, you're right that the cartoon's animation was hit or miss sometimes, but the voice acting was always, I think, one of the strongest pieces.
The characters made you interested. Yeah. The performances, and there were voices that were very cool, but at the same time they weren't crazy where kids couldn't, go around doing a jazz impression or do whatever. And I think this appealed to a lot of Spectrum people before they even knew what the Spectrum was, because you're talking about something that was pre-fidget spinners, like that you could mess with the Transformer. I mean, half of our toys, how loose were the joys? Because we just transformed them over and over and over.
Yep. So, I mean, fast forward, a few years later, and how did you get into voice acting, that set you on the path to...
A few years.
Yeah.
A little longer than a few. So I started professional voice acting in 2000. I want to say it was the very early beginning of 2008. It was right January. But previous to that, I had done like online stuff, and that's kind of how I'd already started towards that journey. I just didn't, again, it's like Transformers where all the parts have to work together. I had all my parts there. They were just all kind of scattered around and not working together yet. I was doing my own Transformer stuff on YouTube for a while. People had kind of considered me like a YouTube Optimus Prime type personality, and had a big following just from that, which it was more like I wanted to do what Space Ghost and other Hanna-Barbera cartoons had been done on the Cartoon Network, where they had redubbed over stuff and made funny things out of them. And like, I'd like to do that, And then it got to be where people were like, "Oh, I think you have a great Optimus Prime voice. Would you be Optimus Prime on my YouTube thing?" And that was just kind of something I did for fun on the sidelines, whatever. But 2008, I became a professional voice actor for a local studio where I lived. And I actually had booked Star Wars within the first month. And oddly enough, one of my first auditions was a Transformers commercial for Revenge of the Fallen for the, I want to say it was either Matchbox or Hot Wheels, but the racetrack, with the Devastator racetrack. And when they called for my Star Wars booking, there's like, "Hey, congratulations, you booked Transformers." Oh, wait, you booked Star Wars. And I was like, I went from being like that sounds amazing to like, oh man. And I was like, I should be excited anyway, though, right? Still Star Wars. With the whole, you got Transformers. Oh wait, no, you didn't. And then so that was like my close call. But while I was working on Star Wars, I found that the person that was working in the Star Wars department at Hasbro used to work on Transformers. She actually did the toy voices for the Transformers animated series, and I was like, oh man, I would have loved to have done that because there's so many of those. Because I found out very quickly that they don't use because everybody starts off non-union and they don't use non-union talent for like things like the toys and the toy commercials. They actually get sound alikes for that kind of stuff. I'm like, well, if they're not allowed to do the main guys, that would have been cool. And I did a little bit of, I think whenever we got our audio connected, I said, "Boss bot, got to show on your motherboard." And she's like, "That's a really good Bumblebee." I was like, man, I would have loved to have worked on Transformers toys. She's like, "Where were you 3 months ago?" I was like, "I wish I'd started this one." But I got to be Captain Rex and Anakin Skywalker for the toys and for the commercials for them at that point. And that was kind of that connection to Hasbro initially. And I remember her just kind of geeking out. She's like, I actually did record Optimus Prime. I directed him for the toy, for the helmet, for the movie. And she's like, I tried so hard not to geek out because he said, Mr. Cullen, we need you to record for levels. And he goes, my name is Optimus Prime. And she goes, yeah. Sorry, buddy, sorry. So I was like, at the time, I was like, holy crap, you got to meet the original voice. That is so cool. And then she talked about, since she started working with Star Wars, that George Lucas, at the time, this is what she told me. She said Lucas actually approved the voices for the toys. And I was like, that's really cool because that means he approved me to be the voice of Captain Rex for these toys, which I thought was awesome. But she talked about going to the Skywalker Ranch and getting to see the 7-foot Star Destroyer on the conference table. And it's like, man, she's like living the ultimate pro nerd life, And I was like, man, that's the kind of level I'd like to be at one day. And now, you know what? Here you are, 16 years later, kind of right there.
Nice.
But yeah, that was kind of the beginnings. And then Transformers professionally really kind of kicked in with Combiner Wars, where every year I went to make sure I said hi at Hasbro's booth at Comic-Con because of that initial connection I just talked about. And I was always looking to see if she was there because she had such great stories about working for Hasbro and some of my favorite brands. And Machinima happened to be there. I knew they were because I started working on YouTube stuff in between there. And it's kind of like I've been running 2 careers simultaneously parallel to each other, where there's social media content creation, and then there's just professional voiceover work. And they kind of do work really well together, but one doesn't pay very much, if at all. And the other one, if you get booked and you do really well and you're talented and you know what you're doing, you can actually make a good living at it. But you also have to worry about the high prices of living in certain cities like Atlanta or LA or New York. So it's kind of a give and take. And they recognized me from Honest Trailers. They were like, hey, we'd love to talk to you, traded business cards. This thing, no audition, no nothing. They were like, we'd like you to be the voice of Optimus Prime for our Combiner Wars show. They explained it to me, the thing. I was like, why can't you get the original voice? Why can't you get Optimus Prime? We get Peter Cullen. And it's like, well, the way we're doing the show, they won't do it. They can't do it. And I'm like, okay, well, but they said, but the idea is that this season really does really well. They would be bringing them, we would try to get the original voices for the subsequent seasons. So I thought that was terrific. So my goal was to do as good a job as possible to get the thing picked up for the next couple of seasons and get the good voices in there. And we accomplished that. At the same time, it was kind of a mixed bag because of the way they wanted the voice done. I felt like they didn't really sound like the original voice, which I was hoping had come back. And if you wanted it to sound consistent all the way through, I would have assumed you want to get it as close to match all the way through as possible, which has ended up not happening. And then I get a lot of flack for it for not sounding enough like Optimus Prime. So, I mean, I was doing my job best I could, but, I've always had that kind of a director's brain, even though I was a talent, where I was like, if I was doing this, I would do this and do this and do this. But you're not there to say what you think. You're there to do what they say. So I just did what I said. I do my job. And I've gotten a lot of flack from a lot of people over the years from the Transformers community for that, because they have this crazy notion in my head that I'm gunning for people's jobs when they I fill in for way bigger actors, guys. Like I fill in for Ryan Reynolds. I really fill in for Jason Momoa, Chris Hemsworth. One of the things that happened that was a negative experience was that I was asked if my agency was like, we'd like to submit you for a Bumblebee movie and I was like, what for? And they said for Optimus Prime. And I'm like, why can't Peter Cullen do it? And they're like, no, he's doing it, but he's not able to do like the early production stuff, whatever. I was like, oh, okay, because I'm not no, he's Optimus Prime, especially in the movies. Like, that ain't me. They're like, no, this will just be Tip where you'll be doing the Tip voices and the rest of the film, whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. Because I wouldn't submit otherwise. That's just not gonna. That's not how you do business and professional voiceover. You don't try to be the guy that's waiting in line to be the sound alike for the guy. Yeah, much rather work with these people and the same thing as them than take a job from another voice actor, especially a legend. And so something completely out of my control happened where the promotional department took some of the temporary stuff that I had done and put it into a teaser that actually went out onto the online. And then because of the interwebs, people started putting the yarn and thumbtacks together, thinking that something had happened and that they were using me as leverage over him, or they were casting me because he refused to. They made up a whole bunch of rumors. And because we're under non-disclosure agreements during production, we can't say anything either way. If I say anything at all, I'm in violation and I could get sued for a lot of money. So I can't defend myself. I can't say, no, that's not true, and nothing like that. And then, so people just made assumptions based on things that they heard from other people and other panels with other actors, and none of it was true. He was always going to be the voice of Optimus Prime from the very beginning. I was just filling in, and ironically, the same exact thing happened for Transformers 1, and nobody freaking noticed, and nobody has a problem with it. I filled in for Chris Hemsworth for the whole film, and none of y'all noticed. Ha! Not exclusive news. I've told this in at least, I made sure to talk about this on the Twincast for Sabertron.com has always supported me over the years. They've never been talking towards me, and I've always appreciated that website and the staff there. I'm volunteer staff on that site. I try to get them some scoops when I'm allowed to talk, because we have to be very careful about what we say. People take information. I can't even comment as a fan anymore. I find other Transformers fans, and I'll see somebody talking about a project like, oh, this is never, I was like, what? Come on, yeah, it's obviously they're going to do whatever. And I'm just talking as a fan, and they'll take my comment and be like, news, Jon Bailey knows something. Look what he said. I'm like, oh, man, you're making this hard for me now. Now I can't even go comment on your stuff. Don't y'all want us to interact? I don't want to be the voice actor that you can only talk to if you pay me for my time at a convention somewhere. I don't want to be that guy. I've never been that guy. I'm not going to. So, yes, you can get something signed. You can talk to me and chat away when you see me at a convention, but I still interact online, and I don't see any of the old school folks doing that because I'm not like that. I don't force people to only be able to see me and talk to me and get pictures with me, whatever, in this one particular situation. I am actively participating in the Transformers fandom because I am a Transformers fan. I want it to be the best it can be. I always strive, whatever I work on, for it to be the absolute best Transformers thing it can be, to the best of my ability, including if that means not being involved. I am totally fine with that. I would much rather have the OG voice, which is the voice that inspired me to become a voice actor in the first place, than myself. But I am more than happy to be somebody's understudy. I got bills to pay, and they don't.
Yeah, like the idea is like people will just make up whatever stories that they need in order to feel vindicated or feel good about themselves.
And they're not really in the room where it happens. And I'm like, no, that's not the way this thing went down. Not at all.
I'm completely surprised that the Transformers fandom jumps to conclusions. That's shocking me.
I noticed a lot, even with the Transformers movie, with the new movie. A lot of the biggest viral things are people being negative about it. Yeah. Oh, it's doing badly. Oh, it's doing that. I'm like, no, it's not. Stop. Why don't you just focus on the freaking positives instead of looking for negative news to scare people into making it do better? There is no need for a hashtag save Transformers 1. I told y'all, just be patient. Word of mouth will get around because it is a fantastic freaking movie. And eventually people are just going to go watch the crap out of it. Just because it didn't do great on an opening weekend does not mean anything. It didn't open worldwide all at once. It staggered. There was a lot of factors involved. The reason why Paramount showed so many people early screenings of the movie because they knew it was that good. They didn't need to advertise. They just need to let you guys tell each other, this movie's awesome. But I think the problem is, because so many people have been so negative for so long, nobody trusts anybody's opinion about Transformers anymore. That's y'all's fault. I've always been honest about my opinions on Transformers. I always point out the positive things that I like and just don't talk about the stuff that I don't like. That is a fair assessment. I'm just like, you know what? I thought this part right here was cool, even if I didn't care about the rest of the film. I told y'all Bumblebee movie was really good. Did I think it was perfect? No. But I told you it was really good. They got it this close. Transformers 1 freaking nailed it. And y'all should have listened to me. I'm the voice of honest trailers for a reason.
I've taken some flack for saying that it was better than the 86 movie if you take off the nostalgia glasses. I think
You have to take off the nostalgia
Yeah.
lens because if you look at it from a plain technical, logical standpoint, it's a better film.
Yeah.
Yes, the animation is stellar, but the animation is also interstellar in Transformers 1. Yes, the story's okay, but it was kind of eh. And there's parts that were kind of eh. There was a lot of montages, y'all. Come on.
I take it you're not a fan of the montage, huh?
Sell us songs and get us to buy albums because they're like, these guys are kind of out of the Transformers phase now. They're probably at the age that they want to buy albums and hang out with their friends. And why do you think they hired Judd Nelson, guys? They were aiming for a specific audience that was a little too old to be kids and a little too young to be adults. This movie aimed for anybody of any age. You don't even have to know about Transformers. You could literally say there's this insane movie that feels like a Pixar movie back in the first days of Pixar about this alien race that's under this tyrannical rule, and there's an aliens. And you would have been like, that movie sounds amazing. You go watch it, like, wait, this is Transformers.
Let's stay on that topic. So you mentioned being on the Bumblebee movie. Actually, I read the Sabertron article when you talked about getting the Bumblebee movie job. So how did that lead into getting the Transformers 1 job, or was that a completely separate thing?
I really don't know how everything connects. I don't really know. I kind of just let Jesus take the wheel and just do whatever God guides me to do. But I know that they initially were like, we like you to do background voices for the film. Initially, I was brought in just to do the temporary Optimus Prime stuff, but then they had this long list of characters to do, including ones that got cut. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I would love to do these. And I did the few that they had asked me to do. I happened to be there the same day of Steve Bloom. And unfortunately, the lady that came out, she's like, which ones have you booked before? I'm like, man, because I know Steve's was like, and so I went in there and not knowing who Travis Knight was, because I've worked on other films before, and there's usually the director of the film is not in the ADR sessions, especially for a live action film. The animated segments are just done with especially the audio part. It's just done with an ADR recording studio guy, and there's an audio engineer and an ADR director. That usually you don't get the Michael Bay and or whoever is actually directing the film there in person. So I didn't, and other than a couple of directors, I don't have no idea what Travis Knight looked like either. So it was kind of like when Harry Potter saw himself doing the Spectre Patrona. I was fine because I didn't know I was supposed to be nervous or anxious or intimidated or whatever. So I was just like growing with him, like, oh man, did you know that this voice was based on this and this? I was just Transformers outing with him, and he's like, that's insane. And he was just, mine was blown. And I said, and so I did my two. I think my two, the only two that Steve Bloom had not booked before were Ratchet and Ironhide. By the way, both which got cut. No, I take that back. Ratchet ended up being in the film. He had like one sentence, but Ironhide ended up getting cut. So after I got done, I was like, would you mind if I tried some of these other ones? Because I have been doing these voices for 30-something years, and I'm pretty damn good at it. If you just give me a shot. He's like, oh, yeah, go ahead. And dude, he literally said, you're blowing my fracking line without the fracking part. And I'm like, that's how I do. And he's like, man, this sounds just like the original cartoon. And I'm like, I want it to be as good as possible. And I started telling him like how they came up with some of the different voices and where Shockwave's voice originated from and how they did the vocoder effects on Soundwave and what voice that Frank Welker was doing. And I even told them, I even gave them ideas of who they should have cast. Not me. I was like, you should get David Warner for Shockwave. It's absolutely perfect. Or Jonathan Pryce. They're like, those are really good options. So, I just wanted it to be a great movie. And I got to see that opening Cybertron scene, even completely unfinished. It was like, oh, this is the coolest thing Transformers I've ever seen, man. Kudos, because it looks awesome. And then when I filled in for a whole bunch, Starscream originally had a line. A lot of those guys had lines. So at some point, all of us had done. I've heard two different versions of Cliffjumper. Steve Bloom was not the original voice of Steve Bloom was the original voice of Cliffjumper in the screening version of the film. A lot of people don't know that either. And they got what they got in the final version of the film, and there was a different voice in there earlier. And I honestly thought Steve did a great job, and they should have kept him as Cliffjumper, or they should have let Dwayne Johnson do it in preparation for what they ended up doing for Transformers Prime. But that's a whole separate ball of wax. I'm just a hardcore fan. Anyways, so at one point I was Wheeljack, I was Ironhide, I was Starscream, I was Ratchet. I feel like there was one Shockwave and Soundwave, obviously, and I was just doing temp for Optimus because that was always going to be Peter Cullen. And I think the only one that they had cast was Bumblebee. That was the only one that I did not record for when he actually did speak in the film. So and take that back, Blitzwing. I did not record for Blitzwing. They'd already cast David Sobolov for that role. But Steve Bloom and I and Grey Delisle was also there. She was our voiced Darcy. And it was pretty obviously that was the voice she was going to do because of the one female character. But as far as the other ones, I don't know if any other ADR recording guys were in that group. So it was basically just me and Steve doing all the voices, and then they just went through there. And I found out later on from the engineer, I was working at Michael Bay's mansion. Yeah, that actually happened. Oh, a completely different film, by the way. And it was Ryan Reynolds movie. And I was working. The engineer was the same guy that worked on Bumblebee. And he's like, "Oh, Optimus Prime heard your voice, right?" I'm like, "You can tell him who I was, or I don't want to make him mad because I know how he probably would feel knowing that they didn't pay him $100 million to just do his temporary scratch work instead of just But it was the way the film was done. It had a tenth the budget of the previous film, and they just did the best they could with the budget, and they had to work with what they could work with. And I was just like, I want to make it the best it can be. Obviously I'm not Peter Cullen, and nobody can be, and he's the reason why I want to get in Transformers. So I just try to do my best to fill in the gaps until they brought him in. But then when I got the news that I was going to be Shockwave and Soundwave, I had never in a million years. It's one of those things where I'm like, am I really in a coma? And this is all just, this is just some alternate reality like Black Mirror or whatever. Because when I became a voice actor professionally, my biggest goal was I would love to be the actual voice of a Transformers in a scene with Peter Cullen as the voice of Optimus Prime in something officially Transformers, and not some fandom or some dub or some, back then we didn't have AI voices to think about other than the ones on hold on your answering machine, whatever. But it was like that kind of like, I wanted it to be a real thing. And that checked off a really big bucket list item that I honestly never thought I made a Decepticon sandwich out of Optimus Prime. It was like me, him, me. It was really cool. The Transformers Oreo. It was Oreo pot.
So did anything change for recording your like for doing voice acting in 2018 pre-COVID, with the Bumblebee movie? Now we're in post-COVID with Transformers 1. Was the procedure different? Like, were you still like in a booth with engineers and everything, or is it
not a thing changed? I don't know why any voice actors even flinched for COVID, because I'm like, oh, be stuck at the house inside a box by myself, staying away from germs and other people so I don't mess my throat up. Oh no. It was like that meme I say is like, oh no. Anyway. I didn't know what else to do except what I was already doing. The only thing that changed for me was booking jobs and going to studios, because then they had this ridiculous, rigorous list of things. You had to go through a drive-through testing center, and then they tested you again on site. So working for Disney Marvel during that time was unusual because you get on set and everybody's unmasked. But I didn't get COVID from Ryan Reynolds, and we didn't wear masks around each other. I didn't get COVID from Sean Gunn or from the actor who plays Cassie Lang or Ironheart or any other Marvel actors that's close to. So either their preventative measures worked just fine, or everybody that was smart enough to do what their mothers told them to do a long time ago to avoid getting too close to other people, to cover your mouth when you cough and sneeze, to wash your hands frequently, and don't put your fingers in your mouth. Dudes, our parents told us how to avoid COVID since we were born. You just didn't listen. Voice actors are already super careful about this stuff, so I was golden, man.
Awesome. So now with Transformers 1, did you read for any other characters besides Soundwave when you worked on that job?
Well, I already told you the one. I was initially hired to be Optimus Prime and Orion Pax, so until Chris Hemsworth came in, and they already done one. Generally, when I do this kind of thing, and I've done a lot, just so you guys know, everybody out there acts like this is some secret thing and I'm gunning for people's. Nobody's going to recast me for Chris Hemsworth, guys. There's not enough guns there. Okay, it's not gonna happen. I fill in for very, very famous people, and sometimes not so famous people, and sometimes background voices, and sometimes characters that make it into final films. That's what ADR is. ADR is anything that you hear, a little production tip on how things are made. Everything you hear in a film is not all recorded at the same place and the same time, including sometimes the actors and the crowds in the background. All that stuff sometimes is re-recorded. In fact, George Lucas's wife saved Star Wars. by using ADR to re-record their lines. The initial reactions to the first film were awful. It was Buck Rogers level bad. The audio engineer, the sound effects, and the music saved that freaking film. They redid the audio, and it was amazing. And thankfully, they had guys that did not know they were great at ADR, like Mark Hamill, who we all know now to be an amazing voice actor. They were already good at ADR, man. That's the reason why that film was so good. You've seen movies with bad ADR. You all know from the 80s. We've seen Hercules has gone bananas. Another thing where their mouths are not fitting right. It just in the audio doesn't sound anything like where they are. They sound like they're in a room rather than when they're outside. They've gotten better at that. And if you want to see somebody do ADR and do it well, watch the videos of Hugh Jackman doing it for Logan and for Deadpool and Wolverine. The guy's a beast in real life. Like, he can blow through the sounds of his characters without any cuts, just all the way through a scene. And I did that once for a production, and they were like, "You just did a 3-minute fight scene straight through with no cuts, and you did it in one take." I'm like, "Is that good?" Because I didn't have any. I didn't know. I don't know. I'm just doing my job, you know? So they're like, "That's amazing." Well, nobody ever tells me if I'm doing good or not. They're like, "Wait, move it on." But that was the first time I actually heard it. I'm really good at this job, guys. So they hired me to be Chris Hemsworth's sound-alike, which is crazy because I booked him before, but he's not one of my best. You know, I get hired a lot more for some other actors. But because of, they knew that I worked on Transformers. They knew I worked on Bumblebee, but they also knew that I'm very good at ADR. And I've worked for Paramount for more than just these films. So it was very cool to be like, yeah, of course I want to be involved in it. So there's tons of me throughout that film. You don't even have to listen that hard. I'm there shouting D16 and Rise Up and Ryan Pax and all through crowds, whatever, any kind of crowd reactions, I'm sprinkled all the way throughout. At one point, I was starscreaming. In fact, I thought it was hilarious. Somebody was actually a Transformers fan at that very first film festival screening where they showed the very first Transformers 1 screening and was on the message board saying, "I know who did whatever," because I was actually in the thing. And they tried to start a rumor about it being Tom Kenny as Starscream, who voiced him in Transformers Animated, if you're unfamiliar. And I was like, actually, that was me filling in for Steve Buscemi. That was not Tom Kenny at all. So I do a lot of voices. I was Starscream at one point. I was Alpha Trion. They were hoping to get Lawrence Fishburne, but they didn't know exactly who was going to be Alpha Trion at the time. So at one point I was Alpha Trion. I just filled in for whoever. We just wanted to make this movie, and all the way through from beginning to end, guys. You have no idea how hard it was to keep my mouth shut because I am a Transformers fan. But I felt I took this as a test of how much can they trust me to be a Transformers fan and a professional, because you have to be very careful not to cross those lines. You have to keep your mouth shut. Same thing happened with Deadpool and Wolverine. I saw everything before you guys did, and I had to keep my mouth shut. And that was hard because that was amazing. So I get to be in positions where they trust me to do the right thing, and I don't go in there with my camera out and film and record everything. I'm very careful about with Paramount, like, what would you like me to say? Would you like me to post? Would you like me to share? How can I make this as easy for you as possible? Because I care about these brands and because I'm good at my job and I want to get hired back for other projects. And eventually I want to make my own projects. I've actually just secured budget for making some of my own live action stuff. So, and I'm actually working on my own animation company so I can actually make my own cartoons and just do it all myself, because that's the way everything is going. Everything's going to independent production. Big studios, people are tired of seeing the same, formulaic, like taking an IP and remaking the same stuff in it. That's one of the reasons why I love Transformers 1 so much. It is not just remixing the IP over and over again and regurgitating something you've seen before. It feels brand new. It felt like seeing Toy Story 1 for the very first time and being like, wow, this studio company, VFX, whatever, changed the freaking game. And when you want to do animation right, you get Industrial Light and Magic. And when you want to do a movie right, you get somebody like Josh Cooley, and you get a great and talented group of people that work really well together, and you make a fantastic film. I'm not going to say a word about trailers. I'm just going to say you should have just not watched. In the future, maybe don't watch trailers unless you hear my voice on them, and just know John's getting paid to say that. And just watch the movie. Don't close your mind off after seeing a trailer, because trailers often, not just in this case, but trailers can often be very misleading. There's often things that happen in trailers that are in the final film, or they recorded specifically for the trailer to make it make sense, because I do those kinds of jobs as well. So I know that this stuff, I've had to narrate things as actors like Jeff Bridges' voice, and none of that's going to be in the final film. It's just made for that trailer, just so you can understand what the film's about. So don't ever say, well, how come this wasn't? That may not have ever been in the movie. That may have been something brand new for this specific trailer. So don't trust trailers. Trailers are just to either get you interested or they meant to appeal to certain people. Just watch a movie. Give every movie one chance if it's in your genre. Obviously, if it's a musical and you don't like musicals, then don't go see it. If they make Transformers the musical and you're not going to like a musical, don't go watch it. If you didn't know Joker 2 was a musical, now you know. Don't go watch it. Instead, just watch Transformers 1 again. It's now widely released in the entire world. I know it was staggered across. I don't know anything about that. But I do know that exactly what I said was going to happen is going to happen. When the other half of the world hears about this, they're going to see how excited the most toxic and negative people have been about how positive and awesome this movie has been. And they're going to want to watch it. And already, it's practically doubled. It's 111 million as of today. I already told you guys that was going to happen. Y'all should just listen to me, Dr. Jones. You live long.
I will say, I got to see one of the early screenings, and I brought my 10-year-old with me, and his reaction as soon as the credits rolled was that it was awesome.
The kids' reactions are just like ours.
Yeah.
It's one of those few times that a movie appeals to any age. It's insane.
And the marketing was, I think, where we've been the hardest on it. It was just not like.
All I'll say is they're separate departments. The people in production have nothing to do with, and vice versa. But the production of this film is freaking fantastic.
Yeah.
And Josh Cooley was constantly like, "Hey, so what about this one?" He was using my Transformers knowledge to make this the best movie it could possibly be. And I've been blunt with him personally about I kind of wanted to do. I'll tell you one of mine. I thought it would have been cool at the end of the film. No spoilers for anybody saying it. But if they had mirrored what happened with Megatron and Unicron with Orion Pax and Optimus Prime and Primus. The same exact transformation. That would have been a really cool nod to have that old school classic digitized and he's reformatted into a new character, and it'd be like, oh, I understand because this is what happened to Megatron when Unicron turned him into Galvatron. And he's like, oh, man, that would have been cool.
That would have been pretty damn neat.
I was like, man, I was expecting Peter Cullen's voice to pop out of Primus's mouth and be like, "Arise, Optimus Prime," and he's like, "Well, when you have Lawrence Fishburne, you use Lawrence Fishburne."
Yep.
But I like the way it did it because it was kind of an Obi-Wan Kenobi moment with Alpha Trion. So I rarely have a film where I'm like, yeah, I would have done. It was awesome, but I don't have any buts, man. This is just a fantastic film, and I would have said that even if I hadn't been involved with it. I freaking love this movie.
Yeah, well, just going back to something you said earlier, just about AI. This is something that has been in the public consciousness a lot. I'm curious to hear from your perspective as a professional voice actor. This is something that we see in a lot of the arts community. There is some concern about using AI ethically, responsibly, so that we're not taking like you mentioned, you don't want to take jobs away from other voice actors for in different things, and it seems like some people think that some people are at least they're eyeing AI as something that can potentially replace their voice actors, which you don't want to see. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on it, and where you think you see it going.
I just straight up asked Marvel and Disney when I was working. I was like, okay, so AI, how much longer do I got? And they're like, truthfully, we asked and said, hey, can we use AI? And they said, go ahead. So we did, and it didn't work. It's not good enough. It's just not there. They said it can sound like an actor, but it cannot perform. It cannot improvise. It cannot come up with new things that it can't. An AI cannot yet fill in for Ryan Reynolds the way an actor with a human brain can. It can sound like Ryan Reynolds. It's just not to that point. And obviously, ideally, they would love for Ryan Reynolds to do his own ADR because that way they know it's going to be. But when you have somebody at that level, holy cow, they can't. They just can't. There's no way. And they, especially for the kind of money that they would be able to afford to pay him, they wouldn't be able to make the movie. So it just financially and logically makes more sense to get somebody who's in New York, cannot get here quickly. And I mean, it's financially and logistically just doesn't make sense. So it's just so much quicker to pay somebody scale to just do some temporary whatever and do that thing. And AI is just not there yet. I do think that at some point AI will get good enough to accurately imitate a human being to where it's very hard to tell the difference. But it's still very, very robotic, no pun intended. And it can't, like I said, it can't improvise and it can't just come up with funny, intriguing new way. It can it regurgitates existing ideas, which I know is what humans do, but it can't do it as efficiently as we can yet. And it doesn't sound realistic. So I do think that at some point, if they want to do it right, I think that the actors should have the option to sell out their voice to be used, and they get paid whatever if they use the AI of their voice that they signed off on. That I can see potential, because especially with actors who are ridiculously too busy, I can see that affecting people like me only, like people who literally fill in. But I think there's going to be that old school group of people that know the magic touch that some of us have when we go in there and we come up with something amazing, and the actors go, "We're going to use that in the movie. That was good. John did a good job right there." I can't tell you how many jokes or lines or whatever that I improvised, and then the actors or the director or whoever ended up putting it in the film or the show.
I mean, so many famous lines you think of are just improvs on the spot by the actor.
Same. And the same thing goes with ADR. A good example is when I was working on Red Notice. There's a part anytime the ADR usually comes in when the actors are not on screen. For example, like when they're narrating over, like, first we need to go do this, and then we go, and then it shows the panning shots of the bank, and then it shows the trucks, and then it shows the guards, and so there's a part about the vault being and it was explaining how impenetrable the vault was, and I improvised line, and you can't punch through it with your fist because he's working with Dwayne Johnson. And that joke ended up in the final film. AI probably would not have come up with that joke. It would have just read what was written for it. It is that technology is too far away. I do think eventually one day it will happen. I just hope that they work it out where actors can do like what James Earl Jones did. I would like money to go to my family for the rest of my charity, whatever, for the rest of my afterlife, by selling the rights to that AI voice to the company so they can continue doing whatever with it under these, because I'm sure he had a very good lawyer look over that contract to make sure that there was nothing inappropriate going to happen with it. It can only be used in these particular circumstances, et cetera, whatever, and the money goes to certain people. But yeah, I think that needs to be in place. But that's what you're describing is literally what they're fighting for in the video game strike right now. And the only reason why I talk about what we're about to talk about is because I recorded Galactic Trials way before the strike ever happened. And as far as I know, it's not a strike company. And I was told that we are allowed to talk about a game that we worked on pre-strike, as long as it's something, we worked on pre-strike, and we don't, even if it is a strike company, we don't agree to work on anything else for them until they actually agree with the strike rules. Just to clear the air, because I don't want to make sure. I didn't even think about that when I was posting. I was just so excited because Transformers was like, hey, I didn't realize how cool it was, because I don't know if you noticed this, but the movie released in France, Germany, UK, and China the same day as Galactic Trials came out. I didn't put those two together. I was like, oh crap, that's a game and a movie out in the same day for like half the world. And I didn't even think about the strike thing, but I always check ahead of time. It's like I'm not working currently for any game companies that are struck. I'm currently not promoting any game companies that are struck. I'm only allowed to talk about things that I've already worked on pre-strike, just so everybody is aware. So I try to be very, very careful. I try to cross all my T's and dot all my I's.
Well, that's an excellent segue. Let's talk about Transformers Galactic Trials. So
let's talk about it, you insolent friend. I love voicing Megatron. I'm just going to say it outright. I have always, he was never one of my favorite characters, like in my top 10, because everybody had like their top favorite. But he was always my favorite characters, voices. You know what I mean? Like performance-wise, he was the fun villain, man. You loved him being the bad guy because it was always like, I have this excellent plan. The plan's working. Oh, the plan's failing. Run away. It was every episode, every. So it was really fun. And I was kind of at the same time, this is going to be, I guess this is only a me voice actor thing of why this is funny, but it's like, I kind of think it's ironically funny that I'm not voicing Optimus Prime in this game. I didn't actually get an audition for Optimus. I guess they already had somebody selected. But I was like, actually, it's kind of funny that I'm not Optimus Prime, because now I can destroy myself, or I can destroy Optimus Prime. It's not me. It'll be Megatron destroying Optimus, who's not voiced by me. It's a stupid joke. You don't have to put that in. But it's cool. Obviously, this is reprising Soundwave again, and another thing I had to keep under my hat for a very long time. But yeah, I love voicing Soundwave. And Shockwave, my all-time favorite character. I was so happy to voice him again. He is the most logical choice after all. So I voiced the Megatron, Soundwave, and Shockwave in Galactic Trial, and it's very much just Mario Kart and Transformers, which is the game I imagined for myself when I was 13 playing Super Mario Kart. I was like, man, I wish this was Transformers, and now we have it. It exists. Go play.
Yeah, that it just came out last Friday, October 11th.
Literally just released. I've already gotten a copy I downloaded a copy on Switch. You can download a copy, but you can actually still buy physical copies. The one thing I noticed is different, because I haven't bought a physical copy game in a while. There's no instruction books printed in paper inside the boxes anymore.
Yep.
What? My childhood? No.
I just picked up the Zelda Echoes of Wisdom and had the same exact thought. It's like, what the hell happened?
Where's the manuals, man?
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, that's a bygone era, unfortunately. I wish that's
everything's digital. I knew it was going to change whenever your iPhone came with no book.
Yeah, you have to buy like the special steelbook version.
No paper inside this thing at all. They're that confident. I'm going to figure it out. Okay.
Well, now they're
they make it like the secret menu at a restaurant drive-through where you're like, oh, I know all these iPhone hacks. Well, if you give us an instruction book, they wouldn't be hacks. They'd just be written down in the manual.
Yeah.
Or put a nice map in there or something, Come on.
Come on. But yeah, I really enjoyed working on this game. The director for this game was so fun to work with. She was just exploding with enjoyment over my takes. And I would always be coming up with Transformers related things. Like, oh, that's even better. We definitely got to put that one in there. So I'm always happy when they take my Transformers knowledge and use it to improve the product. And the final version is better because of something that as a fan I would have known, and not a fan I would never have thought, So I do think that is one benefit that we have now in the 2020s as opposed to the 1980s where there was no IP before that. We all were coming up with it as they go along. And as I was researching for some Transformers stuff, I was noticing like some characters' voices literally changed completely throughout the show.
Oh.
If you go back and watch the original series and pay attention to the minor characters that are not always in every single episode, and you'll notice that Wheeljack didn't always have a New York accent. At one point, he sounded just totally regular, and then the very next one, he sounded like Wheeljack. I'm like, am I Mandela affected? I don't remember his voice changing.
They didn't.
Literally, they just decided, oh, I'm gonna have an episode. I'm gonna have an accent this episode. Ironically, it was the very next episode. His voice completely changes to a different type of voice.
They didn't sub out a different actor, like someone wasn't available.
No, it was still him. It was still Chris Lana. He just didn't have a New York accent. He sounded like this. It was just no accent at all. It went from that to being a New Yorker or Jersey or whatever. The very next episode, all of a sudden he talks like this. Hey, what are you doing over here? Where'd that come? There's no consistency back then.
Oh, that's I mean, well, we were kids, it's and you can't binge things back in the 80s, so you can't see them back to back to back to back. So
you had to wait for the FHE.
So many voices were. Yeah. I mean, we didn't realize that one actor was doing like 10 characters. Yeah. So and so many of them were each doing multiple characters. So sometimes you'll hear voices that, I'll be straight up honest with you, Rumble and Frenzy kind of sound almost exactly like Skywarp, who sound almost exactly like Mixmaster. Because they're all done by Frank Welker, and they're all this kind of voice. And so it's, some of them have accents, and some of them, but they're all very, very close to the same voice. And we just didn't, they never put them very close together in the scenes in the show. We just didn't notice. We were just completely oblivious. Anyway, sorry. I've chased a rabbit again. Continue. I can't stay much longer. My battery went in low power mode. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we just got a couple more questions. So I mean, just to wrap up, do you have any plans for any upcoming conventions? I know TFCon Baltimore is coming this November. Are you going to be there?
No, I'm not part of TFCon. If you guys want me at TFCon, I would very much appreciate it if a few thousand folks went to TFCon and requested me. That would just make me personally feel great. I appreciate that. But apart from that, Shao Kahn, appropriately named my buddy Bob, who is the voice of Shao Kahn. Yes, Shao Kahn's name is Bob. Has created not Shao Kahn with a KHA, Shao Kahn, the convention, will be in Atlanta at the end of this month. So I'll be there the 28th and 29th.
Awesome.
Cool. Shao Kahn.
All right.
A lot of other cool video game voice actor.
Awesome. Are there any upcoming projects you want to promote?
Yeah, there are. But I can't talk about them. If history has shown us anything as far as movies go, give it a month or so before it gets to digital and disc on Transformers 1. Deadpool and Wolverine is already out on digital physical disc at the end of the month. You'll be able to hear me in that somewhere. I'm there. I worked on it. I can't tell you what until I find it myself, but there is one very big thing I did for Deadpool that I haven't seen yet. But when I find it, I'll let everybody know about it. And then as far as any other projects, the only one I'm allowed to announce that is not out yet, but has been announced, I am going to be the voice of Doug, which is a main character in the cast for a brand new Disney Plus series called The Doomies, coming soonish. I don't have an exact date, but they announced it at a film festival during San Diego Comic-Con while I'm over there talking about Deadpool and Wolverine for the first time. Like, oh, congratulations on your new cartoon. I was like, here at Comic Con? No, some random place somewhere else on the same weekend as Comic Con. So I'm like, okay, cool. Well, now I can say I was in a Disney cartoon. So that's awesome. So yeah, and then play the game. The game's fun. I enjoyed it a lot. I really hope they put multiplayer on there because it would be awesome.
Oh yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys. I don't want my battery to die on you.
No, thank you for your time, and thanks so much for talking with us, and good luck with all your future projects, and we hope we see you on more Transformers stuff in the future. So
awesome. All are one. Transform.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right, thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Wow. All right. That was Mr. Jon Bailey. Thank you so much to him for hanging out with us a little bit on Transmissions Alt Mode. It was great to get a chance to talk to him, and he's definitely working that instrument. He knows how to talk and everything. That's awesome. It was great to talk to him.
He is an unending ball of energy. Well, let's not mince words, Charles. Come on here.
Okay, well, after our interview with Mr. Jon Bailey, let's finish up the show with a little bit of convention news.
All right, we mentioned TFCon, and sadly Jon Bailey's not going to be there, but Jessica. Oh, and I am so sorry. The Giovanni, or I am so sorry. These long Italian-looking names just get me. But she was the voice of Windblade and Cosmos in Cyberverse, NRC, and Transformers War for Cybertron, and she is going to be attending as a guest, and she's going to have a Q&A panel, autograph signings. So awesome seeing some of the newer voice talent showing up. Also, we have Travis Arts, who's the voice of Hot Rod in Cyberverse. So lots of Cyberverse actors are going to be there this week or this year. And then someone that we're going to just talk about in a minute that Daryl got to talk to last week, Bob Budiansky, the creator. Well, this is the creator of Transformers Generation 1, which is not really that inaccurate. He had a very large role in creating the G1 and the characters and stuff. And it is always great watching him do a panel because he kept his notes. And he has a presentation showing the notes and stuff that he took back in the day when he was creating stuff. So be sure to check out his panel, talk to him at his booth, and if he's doing sketches, get a sketch. I have a great sketch from him, and not many people really seem to ask him for sketches. So check that out. And that is all the news we have right now for TFCon.
And I think Bob Budiansky did the trifecta this year. I think he was at TFCon LA, TFCon Toronto, and TFCon Baltimore this year. So Uncle Bob traveling. So thank you for hanging out with the fandom so much. Speaking of that, so we're at the end of this episode of Transmissions Alt Mode, but of course we should mention all our donatrons, including our masterpiece donatrons. These are the folks who continue to support the podcast at our highest level on Patreon, so we give them a shout out in every episode. So thank you once again to John Forks Lemongood, Demon Tech 82, and Steve C. But of course, we love all our donatrons. Thank you, everyone who supports the show and continues to contribute. And if you are not a donatron and would like to become one, just go to transmissionspodcast.com/support, and that's where you can sign up and get lots of perks, including bonus content, getting to watch the show live as we record it, and automatic entry into all our contests, all that good stuff. So we did have a special episode last week for that Jeremy just mentioned. Daryl took the reins there and did a special episode with Bob Budiansky and Mariano Nicieza from Dynamite Entertainment. And this is on the Transformers 40th Anniversary Trading Cards Kickstarter that is currently going on. You've still got another week to join to support the Kickstarter if you want. It's already blown way past its Kickstarter goal, so it's definitely going to be funded. But if you are interested in Transformers trading cards and would like to get in on that, you can do that. You can still do that right now. We'll have a link. If you watch the video, we'll have a link to the Kickstarter there as well. So you can check that out. I'm pretty gutted that I was not able to join the interview with Bob Budiansky and Mariano there. And Daryl did a great job. I watched the whole thing and it was really fun. So you should definitely check that out. And if you're interested, support the Kickstarter. Of course, talking about some of our Transmissions bonus content, we've got our bonus show, We Like Big Bots. Again, that's done by Daryl and Dr. Pants. We've got 14 episodes on our Patreon page where if you are a Donatron, you will have direct access to that. So you can look at all those episodes. They go through all the big bots of their collections. Each episode focuses on a specific bot. So they've been episodes on Ultra Magnus, Megatron, Fortress Maximus, Devastator, lots of big bots, Six Shot, the Six Changer. So check all those out and take a look and enjoy, and write in if you want to see more big bots episodes. So we got to get Daryl back on the wheel to crank out some more of those episodes. So also we've got our Transformers Live Play RPG podcast, Empire of Rust. That's done by Mike down there at the bottom. This has been going on for, I think, now 5 years. It's been 5 years of Empire of Rust, I think.
Shit, I don't recall. It was 2019, April 2019.
Yeah.
That's when we started.
Yeah. 5 years.
You factor in COVID, that's a full decade. Those 2 years, those 5 years in themselves.
That's true. We started recording in April 2019, and the first release was in July of 2019, July of the same year. So, yeah, it's been almost 5 years. Wow.
And season 3 is and it is impressive. Pat yourself on the back there, Mike.
Listen, if John can do it, I can do it too. I did a good job, man.
But yeah, season 3 is in full swing. We've got the bonus version of episode 126, No Mercy Mission This Time. That's out right now. So if you are a Donatron, you'll have access to that. This is a special episode for me because Mike asked me to contribute a little bit to it. So I have a small part in this episode. So everyone listen to that. I don't know. I think I'm probably not in the bonus version since that's the raw audio, but I will be in the finished version next week.
That is correct. The part of guard number 1 will be played as played by Charles, will be played by Mike.
Just like what John was talking about,
right?
Yeah.
I ADR'd it for Charles.
But the regular version will be out for everyone next Monday. So that'll be just a couple days from now when this show goes live, and you can check out the fully edited and all the sound effects and my lovely voice added in to give a little flavor to that episode. But that's awesome. And if you are a Donatron, you can listen right now, get the story, and then come back and listen again and hear my amateur voice acting. And we've also got our Transformers comic, our exclusive Skybound comic, Transformers #1. You can pick that up at our website, transmissionspodcast.com/comic. This has exclusive artwork by EJ Sue for the cover. This is our specially commissioned comic for Transformers #1. You can buy that from us and add it to your collection if you are collecting the new Skybound comics. So we've got plenty of those available on our website. And of course, lastly, don't forget to use our code at toyhacks.com. You can save 50% off all your purchases at toyhacks.com with our code Octobots. And you can use that code throughout the month of October. So until the end of October, use that code Octobots to get 15% off everything at toyhacks.com. And that's it for this episode of Transmissions Alt Mode. Thanks again to everyone for watching and listening. Thank you to Jon Bailey for coming on and hanging out with us for a little bit and bringing his awesome energy to the show. Really appreciated that. And thank you to Mike for hanging out this week and showing coming on and helping us with the connection for Jon Bailey. So behind the scenes, Mike was the reason we got him on the show. So thank you for that. And thank you for Empire of Rust as always. So anything else you want to promote while you're here?
Nope. Empire of Rust is the big thing right now,
Yep. Yeah, everyone check that out. Transmissionspodcast.com/Empire of Rust. Or no, /Rust, just Rust. I'm forgetting the URL.
We have to add a new alias on the URL.
Transmissionspodcast.com/Rust. Very easy. So check that out.
All of you could go there and just click on the link or do a Google search and then click on the link for it, because for some reason, we still end up getting second fiddle to some weird concept album that someone put out a decade ago.
No, we need to be the first search result for Empire of Rust. Come on.
Right. Absolutely.
All right, everyone. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Later.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Transmissions. If you'd like to join the conversation, travel to our Discord channel at transmissionspodcast.com/Discord. Want some cool transmission swag? Feast your eyes on our transmissions gear at transmissionspodcast.com/shop. If you'd like to support our podcast, go to transmissionspodcast.com/support or tell your friends about our show. We'll see you next time.